Did Rome's luxurious baths harbor deadly horrors that slaughtered millions? Stay tuned and we're going to get into it. Welcome back to Jeremy, Roman Empire. I am your host, Jeremy Ryan Slate. You can find me on X. I am at Jeremy Ryan Slate over there as well. And a reminder, if you're brand new to this channel, to like this video, leave us a comment, and smash the subscribe button. All of those things help us to get seen on YouTube and help us to impact more people and teach them the lessons of the Roman Empire. And for those of you that have been watching this channel for a while, I just got back from 3 days in Montana, and I was recording with Andy Stump for a podcast called Cleared Hot. It's going to be out in just a couple weeks. And we looked at the idea of Roman inflation and what that means for us in our modern world. We also took a look at some Roman architecture, which is a little fun too. So be on the lookout for that. I'll be putting it over on the channel so that you can take a look at it. But today we're diving deep into a filthy chapter of the Roman Empire. And that's 7 gross Roman bath secrets that killed thousands. From plague-spreading pools to toxic lead pipes, we're unpacking it all with names, dates, and lessons that rhyme with today. So you guys are not going to want to miss this one. So let's buckle up and get into it. So before we dig into the filth of the Roman baths, let's set the stage. Roman baths were icons of luxury and were public hubs from 200 BC onward, but behind the steam lurked horrors. I'll say this up front, I love how history rhymes with today's hygiene fails, and this is why I find this fascinating. Still, these secrets are too gross to ignore. Were baths a health spa or a death trap? So with clear historical context, we're going to break it down piece by piece and find out what killed so many. So let's start with bath culture. Baths emerged in the 2nd century BC, inspired by the Greek gymnasia. And the baths and bathing were a very important part of antiquity. In 33 BC, Agrippa, who is the general of Augustus, built the first public thermae in Rome, the Thermae Agrippae, and with capacity for hundreds. And here's why I find this fascinating. By 300 AD, Rome had 856 baths serving 1 million people. This is from fontes on aqueducts. Emperors like Trajan built massive complexes in 109 AD, and the Baths of Trajan, covering 10 acres with rooms for 2,000 bathers, as well as Caracalla's baths in 216 AD, held 1,600 with hot rooms. And they were heated by hypocaust, which were floors fueled by 50 tons of wood daily. Social hubs for men and women were mixed by Diocletian, in his time in 284, with a low entry fee, a quadron coin, and this is per Marshall in epigrams. But what about the hygiene? Well, there's no soap. They used olive oil. Interesting fact about this, if any of you have seen the movie 300, bathing culture in that period of time, these Spartans would slather their bodies with olive oil and would scrape it off of their bodies to remove the filth from their bodies. I can only imagine how greasy someone must have felt during that time. I don't know if you could think of that as well. And it's interesting, too, if you read the work of Thucydides, where the actual real story of the 300 is covered, it's one of the things they actually do before they go into battle against the East, which is pretty interesting. But anyway, they use olive oil and strigil, which are scrapers, and this is per Pliny the Elder in his Natural History. Pliny has some very interesting information, by the way. If you're interested in a history of Christianity, one of the first mentions of the Christians is with Pliny writing a letter to the Emperor Vespasian, and he's very confused about these Christians. He's trying to figure out if they are basically eating people, because he doesn't understand transubstantiation, or the becoming of the bread and the wine into the body and blood. So he's kind of like, are these people eating each other? So anyway, if you want to read more about early Christianity, Pliny has some very interesting references which you can try to understand. But the water was changed very rarely, and aqueducts like the Aqua Claudia, which was built in 52 AD by Claudius, supplied 700,000 cubic meters daily, and the baths reused the water. This really bred bacteria. And I guess another interesting fact about this is Romans didn't quite understand the theory of disease yet. We're not quite there. And the Roman doctors would often recommend that if someone wasn't feeling so well, they should go bathe in the public bath. That makes a lot of sense. And obviously we know now that probably spread disease, and especially since the bathwater was being reused. So you can only imagine the amount of bacteria and other things swimming in this. We're going to talk about toilets in a few minutes, which is actually the inspiration for this video. So anyway, but comment below. Would you like to visit a Roman bath knowing that there were these type of risks? For me, I definitely wouldn't, though it sounds pretty cool. So here's our first secret. Disease hotbeds. Baths spread infections like tuberculosis and leprosy. This is per medical historian Vivian Nutton in Ancient Medicine. In 79 AD, Pompeii's baths had communal toilets, spreading parasites like whipworm. So this is the reason I wanted to do this video. And we'll get into it more in a second. Actually, no, let's do it now. So we're looking at toilets. Well, hang on, because that's part of our second secret. Okay, so our second secret. Shared tools and no toilet paper. They used a communal sponge on sticks and rinsed in salt water. This is per Seneca in his letters. This spread dysentery and cholera-like illnesses, killing thousands yearly. So this is a pretty interesting one. Basically, a Roman toilet would be either a wood or stone structure with basically a board across and little holes that you'd go in the bathroom. Believe it or not, I was in China in 2014. It's not that much different there now, where actually some of them in China, you actually sit in the ground in a kind of like a catcher's crouch, which is a very uncomfortable way to go to the bathroom. But anyway, so Romans would actually, they had the idea they probably should wipe, which I guess is good because, it would probably be very uncomfortable if you didn't do so, right? Because it breaks down your skin and everything else. But they would use the same sponge. And I guess they thought salt water was a really good way to clean. I don't know. I'm not wiping my butt with a sponge from somebody else's butt. That just doesn't sound... Frankly, I wouldn't reuse that sponge. And I think that's why toilet paper is so great. But they would spread disease by using this sponge to wipe their own bum that somebody else had used. I can't even imagine that. Hey, I'm done. Can you pass me the sponge that you just used? But anyway, this is one of the key ways that disease was spread, not just in bath culture. Secret 3 is overcrowding deaths. Hot rooms cause heat strokes with vapors leading to fainting. This is per Marshall in his epigrams, and he describes collapses in steam. In 62 AD, a bathhouse collapse in Epidicus killed bathers, per Tacitus in his Annals. Poor ventilation spread respiratory diseases. Baths like the Stabian in Pompeii had high humidity, fostering mold and bacteria. This is per Garrett Fagan, rest in peace, by the way, one of my favorite Roman historians. And here's why I find this fascinating. It rhymes with modern gym outbreaks, which, by the way, I saw a reel recently, and it's took a look at weights in gyms, free weights, and it said that they are dirtier than most toilets. A little bit scary, but I guess it is what it is. So I guess one of the key points here is, and obviously this is 2,000 years ago, but Romans didn't quite understand the theory of disease and how it spread. So there's a lot of things that I guess on surface level make sense, right? Like not feeling well, the baths might help with that. We can release some sweat, whatever it might be. The mold one is big too, because that's something I've always considered. Did people truly understand mold, right? Like if you look at, I guess, some of the French kings as an example, Francis I dies from some sort of a lung infection, might be, or Francis II, sorry. Francis I was his grandfather. Henry II is his father. But anyway, Francis II dies from some sort of lung disease, which may be tuberculosis. His brother, Charles, dies in a very similar way. And you have to wonder, these things that they were calling consumption or tuberculosis, could it have been mold issues? You can only imagine, not just in Roman times, but in the Middle Ages, like what mold must have been like. Because I know for myself, we had a black mold infestation in our house a few years ago because of how the ventilation in the basement was set up. And we also had a leaky pipe we didn't know about, which that was fun. And I had a lot of mold issues for a bit. So I can only imagine what it was like living during this time. So here's our fourth secret, and this is lead poisoning. Aqueducts and pipes use lead, leaching into water, causing infertility and madness. And this is one of the more interesting ones, by the way, because there's a whole conspiracy theory out there that one of the reasons that Rome fell in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th centuries is because they were eating lead pipes and it drove them a little bit crazy. I don't quite know if that's the thing that drives them crazy, but I guess it's an interesting point to take a look at. So Vitruvius warned on architecture of lead's dangers. Once again, Romans didn't know about it, noting sailors paler. Skeleton study from London baths show high lead levels lowering IQs. And this is per archaeologist Christina Kilgrove. Emperors like Claudius suffered symptoms, which was stuttering, tremors, and this is possibly from bathwater. And per the Smithsonian's 2025 article on lead exposure. So as for secret number 5, structural collapses. Baths were massive, like Diocletian's in 305 AD, holding 3,000, but they had engineering flaws. In 354 AD, a collapse in Rome killed dozens, per Aminianus Marcellinus in his history. Poor maintenance in the late Empire with earthquakes, like the 365 AD Crete earthquake, damaged baths empire-wide. This is per archaeologist Jody Magnus. So overheating in floors caused burns. Hypocaust failures led to fires killing bathers. And here's why I find this fascinating. It rhymes with modern infrastructure fails. And I can't even imagine, by the way, a lot of these baths were heated from the floor. And I'm sure you do as well, think of walking around a pool on a hot day, and I'm kind of like, ow, 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 trying to like just not burn the skin off my feet and get those flip-flops on as fast as I could. I couldn't imagine the damage this might have caused to people's feet. And in that time period, it's a very, getting around on your feet is one of the main ways you get around. That must be an infection, which likely they didn't understand, right? Because they would not quite understand the theory of bacteria as an infection. I can't imagine what that must have caused for somebody, maybe leading to things like gout and gangrene and other issues, right? So how about our 6th secret? And these are sexual dangers. Mixed bathing spread STDs like syphilis and gonorrhea. That's a fun one. And funny enough, we're going further in time. When syphilis kind of really hits the European continent, it had been there for quite a while, but it really hits after the Age of Exploration. And in the late 1400s, it starts spreading across Europe. And that time period, when Cesare Borgia likely picks up syphilis, they call it the French disease. Prostitution also thrived in baths with fornices, which are arches used for sex. This is per Ovid, who, by the way, Augustus did not really appreciate a lot of the erotic poetry of Ovid and kicked him out of Rome, and he spent his days outside of Rome towards the end of his life. But this led to an epidemic in baths like the Suburban in Pompeii that had private rooms for special encounters. How about our 7th secret, political murders? Baths were assassination spots. In fact, the Emperor Commodus, who became so hated by the Romans, his first assassination attempt was in a bath, and that assassination attempt led to a poisoning, which didn't work out, and he was eventually strangled. As for Caracalla, he's killed in 217 AD by his guard while urinating. This is per Herodian in his histories. And it's not exactly in a bath, right? Because he was likely moving out on campaign when he was doing this, but he is killed while relieving himself, which is interesting. But as I said earlier, it's because privacy made them ideal. And people could be targeted in baths, just like Commodus we talked about earlier. If you want to read more about Commodus, you can read about that in Cassius Dio. But the legacy of baths is that they killed thousands via disease and accidents. This is per estimates in Kyle Harper's The Fate of Rome, which I highly recommend you read. With lead poisoning contributing to decline, once again, it's a bit of a conspiracy theory, but hey, if you want to explore it, go for it. It's debated but supported by bone studies from Herculaneum. This is per Aristoteca, but they influenced modern spas like the Turkish hammams and descend from them. Here's why I find this fascinating. It rhymes with today's public health scandals. As of this year, hygiene lessons are vital. So comment below, what secret surprised you most? And Is there one you think we missed? I want to hear about it. That's a wrap, folks, from Caracalla's murder in 217 AD to lead pipes in aqueducts. We've unpacked the gross history of Roman baths. What do you think of these horrors? Drop a comment below. I want to hear from you. Smash that like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more updates. Follow me on X. I am at Jeremy Ryan Slate over there as well. And don't forget to check out the newly updated jeremyryanslate.com for resources, blog posts, and other things as well. Make sure you hit us up on X if you want to continue this conversation. But until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and I'll see you on the next episode of Jeremy Roman Empire.